The best thing about video games is that it comes in endless forms, and that's probably the suckiest thing about it because you feel like you have to buy video games all the time. Actually not, because the PC Game Pass and the Xbox Game Pass is what you are going to be looked for, with access to hundreds of games cataloged and changed almost every month, and even day one AAA title releases. This is definitely the Game Pass that you are looking for. With me, I have the Xbox representative, the Junj Gaming. I'm sorry. Your Twitter handle's just a lot easier to say.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. June and I, we have been acquaintances for some time now, besties now. We've spent way too much time with each other.
Yeah, maybe a bit too much.
A bit too much, to the point that I know about all of his cats and his his adventures in video games as well. But if you guys didn't know, he is the guy that you want to look for Xbox here in SEA.
Yep.
And I think that one of the best things about it as well is that SEA is just one of those regions that is up and coming when it comes to the indie scene. Not only up
100%.
and coming, but it's been up and coming for the past 2 to 3 years now. And we've had games that have crossed international waters, gone to really on the big stages such as E3, the
Yep.
Game Awards. So how does it feel for you, a company that sort of helped these teams rise up?
Yeah, it's honestly been such an amazing time over the past year and a half since we got started as the global expansion team at Xbox, where we got to go into these countries and see a lot of the indies that are being made now. And we're like, holy smokes, some of these games really can stand toe-to-toe with a lot of the other games internationally and are even winning awards and recognition across the world. It's been super fun, and a lot of these devs really deserve it.
Right. So back then, I used to work with one of the media partners here at Gamescom Asia, which is IGNC. I used to be a writer and journalist there,
Yeah.
and I remember that was my first, I would say, interaction with indie games. At first, indie games, a lot of the general public, indie games across your minds, there's 2D bit titles, those cartoony looking games, and mostly very Western. But then when I approached, from IGNC, that sort of way of understanding indie games, it goes beyond that. It goes to the studios a little bit more small. They have a vision, but they don't necessarily have the platform
Yes.
to market or let more people know about their games. And that was, I would say, my first interaction. And I think one of them was Toge Productions.
Oh,
and I'm
snap.
sure that, you guys are very
Love those
close
guys.
with Toge Productions as well. I believe that they were one of your first, I would say, ventures into the indie Southeast Asian scene as well, right?
Yeah, like Toge has
Oh,
been...
I'm so sorry. Would you mind just pushing your mic a little bit to
Oh,
your
yeah?
mouth? There we go.
Is that better?
Yes, much better.
So yeah, Toge Productions and the people who in that team are incredibly amazing. They're such lovely people.
Yeah.
And they have such amazing ideas that they've just realized in such incredible ways. One of the most important games that have come out from Indonesia is Coffee Talk, obviously, and has gained such international recognition.
Brie Larson spoke about it
yeah.
during the pandemic. That was insane.
Yes, and it's a game that has such healing properties,
It is.
and so it really sparked such an incredible movement that we now call the cozy movement.
The cozy movement.
Yeah, the cozy movement, and now they've gone on to do so many more games, including publishing A Space with the Unbound by
Yeah.
Mochikan Studios,
Yep.
which is an incredible studio in their own right, and then of course Coffee Talk Chapter 2 as well.
Yeah, Hibiscus.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's on the Game Pass as well. So,
Yep.
and look, I think the most amazing thing about Toge is that they're never resting on their laurels.
Mm-hmm.
They've always got a new idea and a new thing that they're pushing for, which is why, and you'll see tomorrow if you're speaking with them, they've got 2 new games coming out that are totally different from what they've made
Their
before.
usual genres.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm really excited. When you talk about a lot of publications, a lot of them tend to kind of play it safe.
Yes.
They go off the titles. They're very safe.
Yeah.
What their followers really want. But at the end of the day, I think when growth comes from leaving your comfort zone, and that's
100%.
exactly what Toge Productions have been doing, and it's
Yeah.
very rare to see that coming through. So if you guys don't know, Toge Productions is one of those teams that they are a publisher themselves. They work closely with Mojiken, and they first off started off with, I would say, cozy games, as you mentioned
Yeah.
before. So if you guys don't know what this cozy movement is, it's not necessarily a game game that doesn't have combat. It does, but it comes at a very, I would say, a very low skill level to start off the game. It doesn't require a lot of brain juice. It's when it comes to emotions and feelings, it can evoke a lot of like warmth, a lot of familiarity, nostalgia, deja vu, and even I would say happiness and warmth at one point as well. So if you guys are not familiar with Coffee Talk, I highly recommend you guys try it.
Yep.
It's a visual novel about you as a barista, and in your coffee shop, people come in and share their stories with you.
Yep.
And I love that because it's kind of like it kind of reminds me of that. I don't know. There's this one Japanese movie back in the day where people go to this eatery every night. It's always the same regulars, and they
Midnight
share.
Diner?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the
Oh
one.
my God, I
and
love that show.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, it's
you
so
hear those
good.
stories and stuff like that. So it's the same thing that goes with the game. Although I do wish I could see outside of the diner, but at the same time, the storytelling they invoked is just so interesting. And also the mechanics of the game, you guys are wondering, what exactly is the play style of it? Basically, you make tea or coffee for the person, or basically a drink, you have to make it for them. And if you get it wrong, there's a line they say. If you get it right, there's also a line they say. And there's also a situation where you can kind of like create your own drinks, which is also very fun as well.
Yes. Oh man, like I think the cool thing about Coffee Talk in particular, as you mentioned, is that it's really accessible by everybody. Like it's such a familiar setting and theme and topic that it gets people like really invested in it in ways where a lot of traditional games with a lot of traditional genre may not. And so, like, yes, I think everyone should go and play that game.
Right. Now, speaking of traditional, we're going the non-traditional route. I've seen so many interesting games here as well. So we have your usual storytelling-based games like say Raji. I'm not sure if you have picked them up yet.
Yeah, we have. It's been on Game Pass.
Oh my gosh. So like he was actually mentioning to me that the game was out for a while, and I was quite surprised because I didn't know. And I saw how beautiful the game was in terms of like the representation, 100%. The colors, the lore, the culture, as well as Yado. I cannot remember how to pronounce it, but it was also.
It'll come to you.
It was a nodding. No, that was nodding is them. I don't remember. It will come to me later. I just interviewed so many. Yoda. Yeah, Yoda. There we go. Thank you so much for that, Yoda. Yeah, and they also have like a game that also shares the Indian culture and myths and epics. And I thought that was so interesting because we are so, I would say, exposed to Western culture like Zeus, like Hercules and all that kind of stuff. But like what about us? Like Malaysia, we have our Hang Jebat, we have our Putri Gunung Ledang.
Absolutely.
And then you have your Indian, the Ramayana epics. And I thought like these stories deserve to be told too.
Look, like I think one of the most amazing things about Southeast Asia is 100% our culture, right? Like games like Raji, then obviously we've got Cabaret from Persona Theory games. And then obviously all the food-based games that we are...
Sedap.
Sedap, Cuisinier, amongst many, like Kuei that's coming out from Twilight Foundry games as well. And so I think one thing people don't realize, or maybe don't realize enough, is that we have a ton to offer to the rest of the world in terms of what we've got to show. And also like Venba from India as well.
Venba was such an
game.
amazing game. Made me hungry.
Yes.
Also made me discover how much I love vade.
Yes.
I freaking love vade so much.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Who doesn't, right?
Yes.
And so like one of the things that we love at Xbox is that we have such a diverse audience of players.
Yeah.
And so our interest is being able to serve this diverse audience with all sorts of different experiences. And so we're so happy to be able to come to Southeast Asia and be able to find all these amazing games that we can share with this audience. And I'm just super happy.
Yeah, so talking about, games as well, we talked about culture, we talked about storytelling. I want to talk about innovative games. Just now, there was Stellar Rune that I interviewed earlier, and they had such an interesting mechanic where it's like they have these boxes, they have the grid style sort of movement, and they have like these it's a deck building, but it uses dice. And I thought that was such an interesting take to play into these games as well. And we don't really see this sort of like very different sort of gameplays from other people. Like we had like this one I played, I think it was last year, the year before last. It was called Before My Eyes, and that one was really good. Basically, it tracks your eyes, and every time you blink, time moves forward. And at first my eyes were dry, and then my eyes were wet till the end. So that was a very interesting way as well. The method of storytelling is through your blinking. And then we had games that use voice recognition. I believe there was perception. And then
Yes.
Justin Ng, who is now in Ubisoft,
Right.
used to do, I can't remember what his company previously was. He made a game where there was like a raging baby in the sewers where we had to kind of yell out to see things.
Yep.
Yeah, that was also very, very fun as well. So you can see these very interesting sort of mechanics that are just so different than the AAA titles. And I
Yep.
feel like this is why indie games are just so needed.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not only that, it's that a lot of the Southeast Asian game developers got their start, building these games in their garage and like in their spare time.
As the final year project.
Yeah, final year projects, or they got their start as outsourcing studios for larger organizations multinationally.
Yeah.
And so they built their talent over time, being experimental and innovative, and had to stand out with what they could offer. And so then they've pivoted, many of them, from being an outsourced studio solely to actually working on their own titles and their own IP. And that's when we're seeing such amazing ideas and fresh ways to combine genres coming out. Like, talking of which, like Over Hours, which you're going to see just shortly
I'm so
from
excited
Control
for that.
D Studios. These guys were like working for clients previously, and they had such creative ideas for showing off experiences.
Yeah.
And now they're combining some really amazing genres like tower defense and like roguelikes to form something really special of their own. And I think that's super, super cool.
Right. So now that we've talked about like some of the genres
Yeah.
and some of the games here in
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, let's talk a little bit about how Xbox comes in to
Sure.
help the devs here. Because as we know, a lot of people say starving artist or starving developer or starving
Yep.
indie is such a staple when it comes to indie
Yeah.
games, right? So how exactly did Xbox come in to help grow the scene here in Southeast Asia?
Right. So essentially, a year and a half ago, this new team got formed called the Global Expansion Team. And our purpose or our job is to really go into underrepresented markets and really serve the gaming development community on the ground. And so these markets include Southeast Asia, includes India, includes Africa, as well as Korea, where our goal is really to speak to developers and let them understand that we're here to support their visions and their goals for taking their games global.
Right.
And so, we're really helping them end to end. Whether that's understanding what is their games that they're trying to make, get their prototypes off the ground, all the way to providing the funding and support they need to get their games on our platform and then serve to a global audience. We've got funding opportunities like the Developer Accelerator Program, which essentially is there to empower underrepresented developers telling really unique stories. So, we support women, we support LGBTQ groups, we support developers from markets like Southeast Asia and more, where the goal is really to give them enough of that boost to be able to take their games to the world and share it with a global audience. So, we're really excited and happy to be able to do all this stuff. And I've just come off an entirely long circuit of Southeast Asian events, right, which included TGS a while back. We had Level Up KL. We had PAX Oz. We had IGDX in Indonesia just last week, and now we're here ending at Gamescom Asia.
Right.
And all the indies that have been all at these shows, we've just been there to speak to each and every one of them and let them know that we're here to help.
Right. So how exactly do these devs get into the scene, or is it more of you just scouting at these events? Because you do travel out to these events, you do meet with all these devs, and I think for me as well, I've been seeing some of these devs. They're just familiar faces at this point. I mean, in fact, the Over Hours devs were the people I just met at Level Up KL like just 2 weeks ago. I just remembered why I like them. They're the Owl Cats. I just keep calling that. But coming back, you start to see these familiar faces, and it gives you that familiarity and understanding that we know these faces. They have their games out here a lot, but some of them they don't necessarily have their game out yet.
Yes.
So how do you help them get the word out other than just these events?
So the one thing I've found the best thing about working in the Southeast Asian game scene is that it is an amazing community.
Right.
Like everyone is so welcoming and so hospitable that the most powerful thing is word of mouth. I have built up like so many friends. I'm so thankful and grateful to be able to call many of these people who make amazing games my friends, and they just call along their other friends and be like, hey, you need to talk to this guy, talk to this team. They've really got something amazing you have to see. And I try to approach it with a mindset that I'm just here for everyone. So I love to be able to make myself available as much as possible, and I will be more than happy to hear anybody tell me about their amazing game or their amazing idea. And so that's how we get started.
Just the conversation first.
Absolutely. And also, we do a lot of things, programs and initiatives with events.
Right.
You know, we obviously sponsor Gamescom Asia. We sponsored a bunch of shows across the circuit. And the goal is really just to tell people that, hey, Xbox is here. If you want to speak to somebody, I'm here to speak with, or my colleague is here as well. And we're just on the show floor looking at all the games. You know, we really want to make sure people are aware that Xbox is on the ground here and speaking to all the people.
Right. So speaking of that, I mean, we did talk about initiatives,
Yeah.
the conversations. What are the requirements that these devs need to be able to be picked up by Xbox, or be eligible for this initiative?
That's a very good question. Look, there really isn't any hard set in stone criteria.
Right.
A lot of the time, we get a lot of pitches for new ideas, and sometimes they're just a game that they've got in their head that they're trying to realize as a vision.
Yeah.
And we're more than happy to see games as early as a prototype stage,
Right.
where we can even provide potentially support and funding to get that prototype off the ground,
Yeah.
so that they can create this slice that they can then have more conversations with publishers and potential investors. So we're really keen to speak to developers at all stages of their process.
Right.
But more often than not, we get to see games that are in development and like, this is something really cool that we love to share with the world. How
Right.
can you help? And so we're open to seeing everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really have like a requirement on this game
No.
being this partially done or a demo build. It's just more of a conversation, as you mentioned, and that's exactly what you wanted to offer.
Yeah.
Now, out of these, I would say, games here today, how many pitches have you had, and are there any failed pitches before?
Well, to be fair, I've spoken with almost all of the developers on the show floor today, as well as the business days over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So I've had a packed agenda.
Yeah.
And I wish there was even more time in the day to speak with more developers.
Oh, so that's what you consider a failed pitch, because you didn't get to
Yes.
talk to them.
Yes. But in truth, there is no such thing as a failed pitch, because
Right.
to be fair with you, developers have all sorts of interests and needs. And sometimes, maybe perhaps, we're just not a right fit at the moment in time.
Yeah.
For instance, many of the developers are thinking about whether or not they'd like to port their game to platforms other than, obviously, PC.
Yeah.
And so if we're too early in the conversation, then fundamentally our goal is to build that relationship
Yeah.
and tell them, hey, look, we're more than happy to speak to you later on when you're
Yeah.
more ready to have the conversation. Because many
Right.
of these studios are 1, 2, 3, 4 people teams.
Yeah.
And they don't have the resources to think about what's next beyond just launching their game on a single platform.
Right.
And so we're more than happy to keep that conversation warm and revisit later.
Right. So now let's talk a little bit about the games that you've seen here, or
Yes.
rather have seen before.
Yes.
So out of all the games,
Yeah.
which game do you highly would recommend to someone right now?
Right. So this is my completely unbiased, objective opinion.
Yeah. Okay. You're about to make a lot of enemies here. They're all looking at you right now, devs.
Yeah.
Be
so-
careful.
Well, the first game I always will tell people to go and look up for in Southeast Asia will be Cuisinier, simply because, Sean and his team at Battle Brew have been working on that incredibly long and hard.
Yeah. It's not
that-
about the chicken, right?
Yes, it's a roguelike restaurant management sim
Yeah.
featuring really incredibly cute art. And it's going to be such a compulsive experience, such a wonderful experience that people should have. I highly recommend Cuisinier. I'm a big fan of that team and a big fan of that game. We also have I Need Space from Kriyan
I
Arts.
freaking
Yes,
love
I know,
Need
right?
Space.
What a game, what an art style. I absolutely love the team that's making that, but
Yeah.
it's most importantly, it's a game that has such a wonderfully wholesome core, where it's about connections that you're making while you're flying your ship in space and building out your spaceship and the people that you meet. It's really quite a transformative experience.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend those guys. I also am a big fan of Toge Productions. They don't have they're not on the show floor this time, but
They're around.
look, Creek's Run Tactics is a mecha tactics game that is incredibly my jam, first and foremost. And then secondly, they've got Whisper Mountain Outbreak, which is, Resident Evil Outbreak in the new modern age.
Yep.
It's a top-down co-op shooter with zombies. What's there not to love? Set in an Indonesian horror setting, which is completely unique and not in a way where the rest of the world have not seen since games like Dreadhond and Dreadout.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, we've got Overhours by Control D, which is a cool tower defense roguelike. And last but not least, we've got Sedup, which is also the other game you're going to be seeing from a student team from here in Singapore, making a restaurant management cooking game that's very similar to like Overcooked,
Yeah.
where you hunt for your stuff.
Yeah, you actually have to kill the
Yes.
stuff that you want to
Yes.
cook, and it's very,
100%.
very fun. It's very similar to Cuisinier, but this one they come with a 2-player mechanic,
Yes.
which I super enjoy. They have
Yeah.
so many different recipes, and each player has a role to play. I mean, you can play alone if you can handle 2 keyboards. I mean, 2
Yeah.
keyboards at the same time. I mean, why not, right? It's kind of like a Tale of
Fish.
Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that.
That was quite hard.
That was a cool game.
That was a very fun mechanic
Yeah.
that I am happy to see come back into the games area.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, you don't necessarily, I mean, it's not like you don't have friends, but it's more of like, you know, you want to challenge your dexterity if you can. Or you mean, you know, anyways, moving on. Let's talk a little bit more about the other games as well. Out of all the games that are multiplayer co-op, which games do you like?
Ooh, okay. So multiplayer games. That's a toughie.
Yeah, because it's mostly catered to single player, so there aren't a lot. I really enjoyed, again, Sedup. I like the idea of a couch co-op game. That's very, very fun.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Gigabash has been picked up by you guys.
So Gigabash has launched on Xbox already.
Yeah.
Just a little few months ago.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be able to get that Kaiju brawler like that on
I
our
love that
platform.
game.
I've been working with that team for a little bit. I love those guys. And yes, that is a great co-op game.
It is. It really is. So if you guys don't know, it's kind of like your Super Smash Brothers sort of game, kind of like Naruto, I
Yeah.
would say. And you have your own characters. They have their own characters, like Wooly, one of my favorite, things of all time. It's a round little Yeti that has powers that can suck people around, and he can snowball and just roll around and just
So
kill
good.
people. It's so fun. And then he can bring down an avalanche for his ultimate. And then you have the Ultraman, the old Ultraman looking guy. I forgot his name again. He has like a big belly. He's a retired Ultraman guy, but he's honestly the easiest character to play. You have Concrete, which is a building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Concrete. It's a very funny Easter egg where you, as a building, you just smash your head into the ground and just chop people. I love the Gary-looking snail thing. I forgot his name again. Yeah. As you see, I don't really like follow their names. I just give them names because it's just very
Yeah.
derpy that way.
Yeah,
It's very,
absolutely.
very fun. And it's very fun. You can play online or even on couch. I prefer couch, honestly, because of the lack of latency. Honestly, a very fun game made in Malaysia.
Honestly, Malaysia is really insane with the talent that's coming out of there. We're seeing so many exciting games like of all sorts of genre. I mean, you've got Null Space from Kaigan Games.
Yep.
Love those guys. They first made some really incredible horror FMV titles like Simulacra.
Yeah, Simulacra was awesome.
Yeah, right? And then now they've pivoted to making a like space 4X like combat game. So what I love most is that a lot of these developers are not just sitting still and making the same games over and over. They're trying new things, they're going new directions because they understand that like the global game space is so full of different things.
Right.
That they've got to just put themselves out there in the best way possible.
Yeah, and speaking of putting themselves out there, that's exactly what Xbox has been doing. There's a lot of work on collaborations done between the devs as well as you guys with the PC Game Pass as well. I
Yes.
feel like the PC Game Pass has given me this way, because sometimes it's not like I run out of games, but you know when you go on your Steam and you're just like, oh, I don't have any games to play and I don't know what else to play. Like I can just go into PC Game Pass and I can just like kind of scroll down and I would discover so many new games that I really, really enjoy as well. And on top of that, on top of like the indie games that you can do, there are a lot of AAA titles on day one. Starfield was one of those titles, and I was so lucky to be able to do that on my PC. And then after that, I also really enjoy playing Sea of Thieves. I remember I bought
Nice.
Sea of Thieves first, but my friends
Nice.
don't have it.
Yeah.
So what I did was I told them, just get PC Game Pass. You pay just a small amount, and you can just see a lot of other games on there. And because of
that.
that one game, it gave my friend group so many new games to
Yes.
kind of like play around with. It also gave them a lot of games to play with, and they end up never leaving PC Game Pass.
Awesome.
And on top of that, you also have your integration with other games. Like with Riot Games, you guys have something going on there.
I know you're a big fan.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big Valorant fan. So for me, getting the agents has never been a problem, but I have been paying for more than one PC Game Pass
Sure.
just so I could get all the agents unlocked, as well as a 20% XP boost, so I can have alternate accounts to practice different roles as well.
Damn.
Yeah, I am that dedicated.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's an immense amount. In Malaysia, it's only 15 ringgit per month, which I think is a very, very low amount considering, like, if, say, you wanted to buy Starfield on day one, right?
Sure.
That's going to be about 300 ringgit. I'm paying 15 for a day one launch.
Yep.
There's not, and even then, like, I could play it for 2-3 months if I wanted to, and it would still not be the same price because I'm a streamer and I stream a lot of games, and a lot of my games only get one use, and then I'm done with it. You know, technically,
That's a good point.
yeah. So it's best for me to do PC Game Pass because I'm just gonna play it once. I paid $300 and I'm playing it once. It's such a waste.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the like you mentioned, like the low barrier of entry for you and your friends to get together and play like some really fun multiplayer stuff.
Yeah.
That is to me like so cool because I remember back in the day, you know, games like Left 4 Dead. You try to get a group together.
That was
you
hard.
gotta go to like a PC cafe.
Yeah.
You know, and so that everyone can have a good
That
time.
was my Friday night.
Right? Yeah, we all had that. Come on,
Yeah.
growing up. But now, you know, we're able to offer that experience for people right at their homes. And I think that's really, really special.
Right. So I think some of the questions that a lot of my viewers had before was that does PC Game Pass actually combine with the Xbox Game Pass? Because some of them don't have a console yet,
Right.
and they're thinking of pivoting into the Xbox. So is there something like that?
I think like we very simply have offerings for people who have the console and people who don't.
Right.
That's why PC Game Pass exists.
Yeah.
And then if you have a console, you get the Xbox Game Pass.
Right. So it's basically based on the console. And I honestly think that even then, the price barrier is already very low. I don't mind paying for both. Hell, I'm paying for 3 PC Game Passes. Yeah, I mean, literally, it's not a high entry point when it comes to video games. And coming back to indies again, I think that also another thing that how exactly do you help these indie devs in terms of, you know, some of them, they are just out of school, they have
Sure.
an FYP project, and I think that was the most intriguing to me.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, this is a FYP project that we have brought forward into a full game to be published.
Yep.
How does that work? I mean, like, some universities, obviously, they want to take ownership over the work. How does that work?
Okay, so I think quite simply, you know, that's a conversation that I think the students and the universities will have to have with one
Yeah.
another. Our role is really to be more like an advisor or mentor to the students as they're thinking about their next steps with the particular game that they've made or their career path. Where, for instance, you know, a student team might come to me and say, hey, we've got a cool idea for a game. Do you think this might be potentially commercially viable?
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to provide my experience and my knowledge to share with them about how they could potentially take this idea to the next step.
Right.
And or perhaps like they have something there already that they'd love to turn into a full product that they're going to launch on console.
Right.
And then at that point, we have those conversations with them and then potentially bring their those conversations internally for us to evaluate if we want to support this game with funding opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fundings, is it equal for everyone, or is it based on what potential they have? Like, how does that work? Because I think like some of them are saying we don't know how much they're going to offer.
Yeah.
Is it going to be enough? Like, how does that work?
In all honesty, we have it's very equitable across all the teams that we speak with. Our Developer Accelerator program, which offers a porting fund, which is essentially is a amount of money that allows you to get your game ported, basically essentially reducing the risk there, so that you can get your game on our platform and be able to launch it and start seeing returns on that.
Yeah.
And so what we do with that is that we simply provide that as an amount to across all the developers that we work
Right.
with. And it's a fairly standard amount, but we think it's a good enough amount that it's going to be very, very good for the developers to be able to get that across the finish line, basically.
All right. So
Yeah.
the final question that I have
Sure.
for you now is, how many studios have you collaborated with thus far to date
Okay.
for Southeast Asia alone?
Okay, so there's two answers to that. I think the first answer is that in my time since I started at Xbox about a year and a half ago, I've spoken to over 200 plus game developers
Wow.
from across Southeast Asia, and we are in various states of conversations.
Right.
In meaning that you know, whether they are still in discussion with me about bringing their game to console, or maybe we've already started that process of porting the game. Whatever it is, I've spoken to over 200 different developers,
Right.
and I've and it's still counting.
And it's still counting.
Which is incredible, because what it means is that these are unique developers with unique experiences. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I'm also happy to say that we've signed many deals, both from our DAP offerings as well as Game Pass, from across the Southeast Asia region, both from when I begun my time here, but also prior to my time here. So we've provided a lot of support and like actual tangible benefits to a lot of these developers, and we're hoping to sign even more.
All right. I mean, that's really exciting to hear as well. I mean, if you think about it, because that's a lot of developers that you have helped rise up. And I think in my time, I wanted to go into game development.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know how I ended up here, but anyways, my mom, she wasn't very happy with the idea of me going into there, because at that time, you know, there wasn't any support for game development.
True.
She thinks that in Malaysia there was no work. But now with the upcoming, you know, rise and surge in developers in Malaysia, do you have any advice for any up-and-coming developers?
Yeah, look, very simply, there is an audience for your game, and so you should truly, strongly, wholeheartedly believe in what you're making, and there'll be an audience for it. I've seen so many incredible different ideas and things that I would never imagine in my time as a gamer seeing, and so I just encourage everyone to pursue that game career with full passion, and we're here to help.
Yeah, there we go. They are here to help you. Thank you so much to Junch as well as Xbox for being here today. Please, guys, if you can, do support this initiative by joining the PC Game Pass. It's not the worst thing. It's not just support. It's for you, for your support of your video games, for the support of your wallet, and also day one launches as well. There's incredible titles for both the Xbox as well as PC. So do go and check it out. And after this, guys, more of the games here supported by, but sponsored to us by PC Game Pass as well as Xbox. Coming up next, more indie Wavemakers here at Gamescom Asia. Do not go anywhere.